They need volunteer hours.
Classes.
That's
Okay, so
awesome.
yeah, we have a significant range of fitness classes, but we also have something called Skill Strong, which is seated strength training.
Yes. at all.
Wow. Now that they officially get the Good Travelers Award.
Signal they're gonna
Deserve
start.
to be able to cry a little bit.
All right, we're in.
But non-voting's.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Right, like to call to order the August 27th, 2025 Apex Parks and Recreation Advisory Board meeting. First, we always start with a moment of invocation. Thank you. Next is our Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As always, meeting minutes are sent ahead for us to be able to review and to take a look at, see if we have any adjustments or corrections. But if there aren't any, we just need to have a motion for the approval of the June 25th, 2025 meeting minutes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Right, next we'll have the executive report and projects and program report. Come on.
So, we have new members. Do you want to talk about new members first?
Yeah, that's fine.
Awesome. So, well, this is our new youth member, Advik. I did say that right? Advik.
Welcome.
And then we have Johnny. So, if y'all want to give a nice welcome, do you want to share any words before I dive into my stuff?
As like introductory words?
Introductory words.
Sure. I've taken liberties. My name is Johnny. I've been a youth coach for over 20 years. I've spent the last 5 years coaching here in Apex. I'm a heart attack survivor. I had a heart attack 6 years ago, and I survived due to my health and wellness. So after I had the heart attack, I got heavy into degrees and certifications. So I'm a certified personal trainer. I'm a certified strength and conditioning coach. Interning at Campbell University right now, working with their sports performance center. So I've worked with kids as young as 5 all the way to adults at 70. I'm an advocate for health and wellness at both of those ages. So that's why I'm here.
What sport?
Welcome.
I'm sorry?
What sport?
At Campbell?
No, you said you're a youth sport coach.
Oh yeah, I do softball and soccer. Yeah, I grew up in Europe. My dad was in the Army, so we traveled the world. So yeah, and that was another interesting thing, and that's what I was hoping to bring here is I've noticed I didn't live in this country till I was 15. So I lived in other countries and kind of see the ideologies, the coaching, the scholastic, and there's some differences, some good, some bad. One of the things that I did enjoy is that a lot of their programs are all year. They have indoor facilities, outdoor facilities, soccer's indoor all year round, schools all year round. So I've used a lot of that growing up. My dad was a master fitness instructor. He was a drill sergeant. He retired as a sergeant major. So health and wellness has kind of been, bred in me for the most part. So I think that not here. I'm pleased with how things are going here, but I do notice I lived in Florida for a long time, and I noticed interacting with their Parks and Rec that there needs to be some involvement, from the community. Everybody coming together. It takes a village. That's true. So I just want to be a link in the chain here in this community.
All right.
Good deal.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
My name is Advik, and I'm a senior at Apex Friendship. And I think growing up, I participated in a lot of the recreational programs, and I use the parks a lot. So I would be here to learn about that and maybe provide my input about what the youth thinks about those things.
Great.
Wonderful.
Welcome. Yeah.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Good to have you, man.
Thanks for joining us.
Yes.
So the next thing I'm going to do is call up Angela. I think she's got a lot to share.
Well, I was really coming here this evening to speak on one big thing. We are officially going to be opening Beaver Creek Greenway and Middle Creek Greenway on October 18th in celebration of the Great Trail State Day. And so as a part of that, our advisory board members will receive a personal invitation from the town to attend. So we'd love to have you out. It'll be in the afternoon at 3 p.m. It's not that it's not open to the public, but it's an invitation only event in that it's a lot of people that have been involved in both projects, and we're going to open them together at one ceremony at Beaver Creek Greenway entrance at the nature park. In addition to that, we have a special public event that will be announced after that ribbon cutting ceremony, and we could use some hands if you're interested in setting up that special public event that will happen afterwards. So we need the hands before the 3 o'clock event, so that morning, that midday. So if you're interested and have time, I can tell you more about it, but because it's a secret to be announced event, we do know what it is. It's not secret because we don't know, but just so that you're ready to make that big announcement. I'm not going to say it here because it's secret, but we think it's going to be really fun and exciting, and so we just need some hands because it's 2 greenways over a mile long, each one of them, that we need to do some work on that morning. So I'm here asking for assistance. Send me an email so I remember and can send it to my staff. But on the 18th, October 18th.
And 3 is the event, but
3 p.m. is the ribbon cutting. We have so many partners in that event. We had federal funding, state, NCDOT, Campo was supportive. Wake County gave us grant money for parts of the project. And so we're inviting everybody to one big event. And we needed a big parking lot, and we needed it to not be filled with our other programs. So 3 o'clock is the perfect time, we think, and a beautiful October day to celebrate our greenways on Great Trail State Day. So, and I think we told you last month or the month before, we got a $200,000 grant from the Great Trail State grant program. So what a better way to acknowledge their support of our future endeavors than to celebrate their celebration day with 2 new greenways. Let's see, we have a lot coming your way. We've talked about our 15 projects this year. We have selected a consulting firm to do the Kidstown Playground renovation project. We will be doing public engagement heavy because that was a community-built playground in 1999. And so our population was much different at that time, but there is a lot of personal engagement that happened. People have kids with handprints. I, for example, was pregnant with my son when we built that playground, and so I had a baby brick, like for the future baby that would be born. So a lot of people have a lot of history. I talked to somebody, kids soaked screws. My other one, soaked screws. So I think that people that are still here have that connection to that program and that project. So we want to make sure we're really getting back into some of the original people to see how we can bring forward some of that in this new project. We'll be asking for volunteers for engagement events for that. We're reviewing 9 proposals that were received for the Apex Community Park playground renovation. That's the front playground. We're really excited about how that could be a very inclusive project and tie it to our Hurricanes partnership, where they're bringing their sled hockey program onto the street hockey rinks. And so what better place to really provide not just inclusive and universal design, but like full-on access from the parking lots inward. And so we're really excited about that project, and we have some really good consulting firms to review and select. So again, once we get them on board, we'll be doing another type of public engagement. The Hunter Street Bike Park survey is out right now. We're working on scheduling a event out there with Nature Trails, who's our design build consultant, They have some amazing ideas and have really shown us some good, like they're ahead of us in contacting the schools and the churches and the local community. And it ties to sort of a new project that's been presented to council, which is working with the Charleston Village neighborhood. The kids had built their own bike track on public land. We're gonna try to figure out how to assist guiding them through the process of a project. Don't know the scope of it yet within their community. So we'll have 2 potentially bike park type programs happening at the same time. Again, tying into those off-road cyclists, and we found out we have a BMX club in town and a racing team. I didn't know they had those, so lots of fun stuff there. Greenways, many greenway projects getting ready to go underway. Environmental Education Center is moving forward to the next phase of design based on the recommendation of council to be a 1-story building. We're getting ready to kick off finishing the design, sort of retweaking the design for Pleasant Park with the 4 fields and the big shelter and open play lawn. What else? I think that's the
About
highlight.
Pleasant Park, the big, huge structure, the cylinder structure that's currently being built right now. What is that?
That's a water tower.
Oh, okay.
So it happens to be a very high point right where they need a tower and we have the land.
Oh,
So
nice.
that will be, I think it's about a year-long construction project. So they're starting to go vertical. They actually pour all that concrete in place.
Yeah, I've been watching
So
it.
it's a
I'm
pretty
at the
pretty
park
neat
all the time.
process, and it's hollow. It's not like any of our other water towers. It'll be a hollow concrete cylinder with a concrete bowl on top. So different. And our one thing that you guys will probably get to see and be engaged a lot in is we're getting ready to finally get the contracts signed for the fee study. So you're going to hear about one part of fee study tonight. The other one is our land dedication fee in lieu. So when we present these projects to you and we're recommending land dedication fee in lieu, it's to study the current land values, to set what the dedication acreage would be and what the value of that acreage is so we can establish those fees. Last time it was done was 2008. The master plan in 2023 recommended that we do an updated study, and so we had to scope all of what they would need to work on separate from these fees because it's a little bit different in that we have state legislation on that, so it's kind of it's not just what we think, it's what they gave us permission to think. So that's going to be coming your way soon.
Any questions about projects? Because it's the perfect time.
Ta-da.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, you don't get me for the rest of the night.
So something I'll talk about, it was presented at the last meeting, just we had somebody come up and present the need for additional camps. I don't know if y'all recall that or not.
Yes.
So, camps. So I've got preliminary numbers that I don't want to share tonight. We'll probably wait till our September meeting because I have them going back to kind of look at a few other things. But I did want to let you know that we're working through that process. And right now we're looking at a school site, not our own site. Obviously, that would be a substantial amount from a rental perspective, so it would be a pretty high cost to potentially do that. But because of our space restrictions internally, that's really our only option, other than adding a few spaces probably at summer camp. So we're trying to make a big impact, not just a very small impact, if we move forward with that. So I did want to give you an update on that. Also, the Tunstall House, just be aware that process is actually going to start first week of September. And so that will have, and I'm kind of looking more towards Merely, because it's going to have a tremendous effect on the parking at the senior center. That lot will be non-usable during the process of the construction of the Tunstall House, so it'll be about at least a year's time frame. They say July, but I'm saying a year. I don't trust construction time frame, so just be aware that that's happening, and and parking in general terms, whenever we have events, it's already kind of restricted, so that'll have impacts there too. So, other than that, I really don't have anything additional unless y'all have some questions for me.
Nope.
All right.
Thank you, Angela, Craig, appreciate it. Next up will be the chairman's report. I don't have anything other than welcome to our new members and excited about another year. So kind of resetting the clock here with our new members, and also welcome to our new vice chair, Mr. Michael Cantor. He's excited to be here, as you can tell.
I don't remember when I volunteered for this, but I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Elected.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's happened to me some
Kind
other
of
times.
voluntold, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that's it there. Also want to leave room for public comment. Is there any public comment tonight?
Nobody signed.
Okay. All right. And then next up will be old business. And we do have one agenda item under old business, discussion and possible motion regarding the updated programming and rental pricing policy.
Pull up that slide. You get the next person study. Good evening, board, vice chair, chair. Nice to meet you. I'm David Wood. Been here since 1999, and just don't get out very much. But yeah, I met a few of you. The last time the pros did, I kind of introduced pros. They did an introduction. And Pros Consulting was the consulting group that we hired to do this pricing policy review. They started that process about 6 months ago, and have done a lot of analysis of benchmarking from the different communities in the group, in the area, in the triangle, over here. So they've done a lot of benchmarking reports. They looked at all our internal documents, our pricing. They interviewed staff. They had, they've done a lot of work, and they've given us a lot of feedback along the way. So what I'm going to kind of present you tonight is kind of just a really brief synopsis of what they are recommending and what we kind of reviewed, and kind of next steps. And what I have handed out in front of you actually is the pricing policy itself with some updates, and we'll talk about some changes from what was in your packet in a little bit here. And we also have some worksheets, some pricing worksheets and these are what a tool that staff will use to determine how to basically price a program. So I just wanted to go through some examples with you, and we'll have time for questions. This is very much a question and answer and back and forth kind of process, because we want to get it right. Because we haven't done this since 2010, so the last time we did a real formal review of our pricing policy. And so it's time, and it's actually in our master plan that we do this annually. So we're going to be doing we won't do a deep dive, we won't be hiring a consulting company every year, but we'll be doing a review of our policies and our pricing annually. And we typically do that as part of our budget process. Got our first budget memo yesterday, actually, for the year, believe it or not.
Next fiscal year.
For next fiscal year. So we're already talking about next fiscal year budgets already. We really kind of get into the deep end of the pool. December, January is where we really focus on getting those numbers ready for the next fiscal years. And just another point is this pricing policy does not extend itself beyond the special event policy, which we have a whole different policy for special events, and they kind of have a different pricing, some kind of different pricing for different kinds of services as part of that. So this won't step over anything that's in the special event policy. So the purpose is, again, we hadn't done it for a long time, and we should do this regularly. We have a lot of inconsistencies within internally about how different staff were looking at pricing and how they were doing it. So we didn't really have a formal structure that this is going to give us, kind of put us all on the same page and a plan to go by. Things like non-resident fees. We had different non-resident fees for athletics and for senior citizens and specialized rec in our community center program. So we'll take a look at that. And we really want to balance the fees based on, we kind of look at an approach that from community benefit all the way up to very specialized and we'll go over this, to where it's just an individual benefit. And so there's a continuum where a program's going to fall in that. And that's kind of to determine where that pricing will be. Is it going to be 0% recovery, like a special event that's open to anybody, doesn't have a registration? We want to keep those at no cost to the public. Where something very specialized class that might be happening at the community center, only 6 people are signed up for. We have an example in here called 3D modeling. So it's very specialized for that individual. That's where the benefit lies. So that's kind of the purpose of this policy, to kind of determine where we are in these continuums. We want to be to be able to last long term. So we want to be financial sustainable into the future, and again, to provide staff a kind of a framework of how to do these pricings. So we're going to review this annually. I said that, and then we'll do those adjustments each year as need be. Part of the budget process, if you've seen the town budget, there's something called a fee schedule in there, and then the fee schedule lists out a lot of different fees that we charge in the Parks and Recreation world. All our rental fees are listed in there, but program fees specifically are not listed in there, because we would have 500 different pricing for programs, and that's not really listed in the fee policy. So this is where this policy that we do gives us, and this is what staff reviews as part of that budget process, to come up with those individual program fees. And just to give you an idea of the scope, just last year alone, we had $1.2 million in registration fees recovered. So we're doing a lot. We had over 50,000 registered programs or drop-ins, so serving a lot of people and a lot of different programs. Now the discounts, as part of this policy, we have a couple, and we can talk about more if there's other suggestions. Right now, the director's discretion, we allow a nonprofit group to come in and do a fundraising event at a facility, indoor or shelter, outdoor facility. They can do one fundraising event per year. We are proposing to have a nonprofit discount, 25% non-profit discount for Monday through Thursday. It's kind of our not as prime time as our Friday, Saturday, Sunday rental out at Pleasant Park, a shelter out there. So we'll give those nonprofits a chance to have a discount during those kind of off days. Not that any day is an off day. We're busy all the time, but that Monday through Thursday is less popular for facility rentals.
And I will say, currently, the 25% discount is Monday through Sunday, so they could do it at any point in time. So he's going to talk about some other facility rental stuff, but I did want to make you aware, currently, it's Monday through Sunday, so it's all week. So we are restricting that with this policy.
And we're also looking, this is our pricing, so for facility side, again, this is part of that fee schedule that was part of the budget. So we're proposing that for the non-resident fees, there'll be a 50% higher non-resident fee for facility rentals, not including fields and sports courts. So that's a proposal. And then we have also looking at that prime, non-prime time for rentals facilities, where you have a Monday through Thursday price, then you have a higher weekend price, because that's when the demand is. So, and these aren't all the fees, these are just a few of them. We probably have residents. Senior Center and Specialized Rec have a $10 higher non-resident fee, and athletics sets at $25 more for non-residents. We're proposing to go $25 across the board to make it equitable for all our programs for non-residents. So keep in mind, so a program at the Senior Center that costs $20 is now going to be $45, so it's a big jump. The smaller a fee is, so if a class is just $5, because there's not much cost of it, for a resident, it's going to be $30 for a non-resident. So just keep that in mind, and we'll go through some examples of what that looks like in a little bit here. As I said about rentals, there's going to be a 50% higher rental surcharge for non-residents. And then passes and permits, we're not changing anything with the resident rates on those.
And I'll add to the non-resident side. So we did a benchmarking study for towns around our surrounding area, and it's all over the place for non-resident fees. So we couldn't get any consistent pricing there. Some people were 30, some people were 40, some people were less than what we're proposing. So obviously that's up for discussion if you'd like to have more discussion on that, because like he did say, it will be significant from a $5 class to paying $30 for a non-resident. Obviously, by having the non-resident fee, we are looking out for the residents who pay the taxes to the town of Apex. So just wanted to make that point.
Why'd you land on the $25 across the board?
So we already had the $25 non-resident fee for our athletic leagues. And so for us, consistency for that. And then after looking at some of the towns in our surrounding area, some at 30, some at 40, and then some were less, we felt like 25 kind of met us in the middle. So that's pretty much how we ended up landing there.
Not ever considering, because if a class costs $5, why not have it a percentage as opposed to a set $25
We
amount?
had discussions about percentages. We landed on the dollar amount for consistency's sake, for just cost.
Right.
But we can have a conversation about percentage if you'd like to. Would you want different percentages? These are the things you have to take into account. Would you want a higher percentage or lower percentage, just like the actual fee for this when it comes to seniors, when it comes to special populations? So it would have to be really defined how we want to move forward with it. So
I see why
we have to keep-
$25 was easier.
It's easier for staff to implement. It's also for like a $5 program that's a really nominal fee if you did a 25% or 10%. And then some of our programs, we have programs that cost like $300 for a really specialized camp, and a percent's going to be much higher than $25 when you add a percent. So those are some of the discussions we had, and where we landed was that more equitable, easy to administer $25 flat
And this
fee.
is just for the non-resident fees.
Correct.
And a question that I had asked David, and David, thank you for your timely response on that, was I wanted to make sure I understood correctly, because I do know of systems where if you're a non-resident coming in, you might pay a $25 fee initially, and that's just a base charge for you as a non-resident. And then you might have a similar system to what we've had before between a resident and a non-resident. This way, if you happen to be a non-resident who wanted to take 3 programs, okay, you're hit with $25 at each registration for each program. I'm correct about that, right, David?
Correct.
Okay, so just to be clear on exactly how that would actually affect folks.
So I do think, like, if you want to have a discussion about whether that should be consistent, 25 across the board, or would you want the ranges for special populations, for seniors, and for instructional classes like we had it in the past?
Can I ask in general, just what do we have a general percentage of like how many people are non-residents versus residents that kind of typically use our program?
Well, I can tell you for athletics, it's a lot lower percentage because we fill
don't have
up so
space,
fast.
right?
We have no
Camps,
non-resident
a lot lower percentage because our camps fill up really quick.
Last time I heard the data for seniors, and I'm not, actually Ally's in the room, so she could probably give us an update, but when we checked, we only had 10% non-residents, and again, exactly as you say, our stuff is filling so much, and depending on the program, I mean, there are no non-residents in it because there's no
Now, the
chance
one,
they're gonna get in.
and I will speak to this, and well, since she's here, she could speak to this too. I do feel like we potentially have more non-residents, maybe in special populations. So that's where this particular fee could have more of an effect.
So one of the conversations that we've had regarding specialized recreation is that
Come on up here.
I'm glad you're here.
Hey, I'm Allie Perlasky. I am the Senior Center Manager, and I oversee senior programs and specialized recreation programs. So one of the conversations we had about specialized recreation in particular, so we've always priced seniors and specialized recreation the same, right? So you have a fixed income, and then you have a population of participants that have a lot of extra support that is needed, whether they have OTs or they have aides that come in and help them. And so specifically, the specialized recreation programs would be hit really hard if we went to the $25 non-resident because of the lack of services. So, you know, typically as an Apex town entity, we're worried about Apex residents. With this population, we're worried about serving this population. And up until 2014, all of the services resided in Raleigh. Since then, they've kind of spread out. Cary is the next biggest, and then we're probably the next biggest besides Cary. If you go to Holly Springs and Fuquay, it's very limited. And most of the time, they're duplicating what we've already established. Like Journey League is in Clayton, right? So they don't have any other specialized recreation programs, but we're helping spread some of our stuff out that way. So we do get a lot of those participants traveling distances to get services for their participants where they would not be able to be served by their town.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And that's why I mentioned special populations. So,
Everything is still open to residents first
yes.
and then non-residents.
Yeah, we have a 2-week period typically with all our registrations where residents are allowed to sign up first. And like Craig was saying, most of our programs are filling up with residents. There's very, very few non-resident spots in reality just because of the demand and what we're doing is high quality and they want to be part of it. So we just can't keep up with the growth. Enough spaces, so we're trying. But so it is very much resident based.
So what I would say is if you'd like to make a recommendation, at least for this portion about non-resident fees, we're open, please do so.
Well, I love that she mentioned, the specialized programs. It is rare, and most of the time they do have to travel because of that, because there's not a lot for them. Are there maybe programs to help with those additional fees if that's necessary? Again, because it is a certain population that usually does get assistance.
Currently, the program that we have in place we only do that for residents.
What I would say, because obviously this is a concern for me from senior center point of view, just because we do have folks who are on fixed incomes and for whom economic hit is always a concern. I think that I know that we have a population of folks, you hear the heartbreaking story of the person who, she'll come and say, I missed being an Apex resident by one house. My neighbor, is an Apex resident, I'm not. Those folks are gonna suffer as a consequence because they're very highly involved. However, I would say, knowing what I know about our demand and the growth in our population, I can live with us increasing, I can live with us having this $25 add-on. I do have a concern, however, because at the senior center, we have a number of programs that are not, long-term programs. And so exactly as you said, if you have a $5 program, it gets tricky. But I think that, on balance, I would say that I can live with a $25 charge. Although I think we should expect that there are going to be some folks who are going to be unhappy.
I think I hear a concern for special populations, though, and that may need to be revisited. That's what I'm hearing, right? And my question would be, if we're talking about that, if we do make recommendations, then that would require this to go back, right, and be considered, and then we would.
So what I would tell you, if you're making recommendations for changes to the policy, in your motion at the end of the conversation, you would make those recommendations and basically say, we recommend the policy or in favor of the policy with these changes.
Yeah. I would express just a little bit of caution in terms of pulling out one entity of department programming and making a special consideration for that. I understand the concern, right? We want to serve all populations, but our priority always should be and should continue to be for our residents. And this is not having any impact on our residents. And I would be concerned if we make a proposal we're going to make an exception for this particular program.
And not others.
Others, like the senior center, for example, come in and say, wait a minute, why that program and not our programming? So I think it opens the door potentially.
I think just the kind of parity in general.
Yeah.
But that our focus needs to be on town of Apex residents. But is there a chance to, I mean, kind of have an understanding of where the populations are coming from, that they're not getting the service that they need? I mean, as far as Fuquay or Holly Springs, is there any plan for them to kind of add more programming to help support their own residents?
Oh, here's your
Allie.
Oh.
I can answer that. So, I mean, right now we have a $10 extra fee, and that does hit families, but it doesn't stop them from coming. And I think when we're talking about the $25, it's just because it's so large, and I get what you're saying about like the varying populations, but you could also say that we don't have control over Holly Springs, Fuquay, Clayton, New Hill for that population. And a lot of, I get the whole argument. I wanted to just point out that if once they age out of high school, there's nowhere for these people to go, right? So, I mean, we provide a lot of services for those adults that are 20 plus that literally have nothing else to do. And we see a sharp decline when they like exit high school as far as verbal, just social skills in general. And so that's what we're trying to do, is bring that population together to have those services, to have that community. And yes, it is a community that is built of people outside of our community, but it is a special community. So within our, when we have bingo night, we have 30 participants, 10 maybe non-residents, but if you go into the lobby outside of the room, all of those parents are now sitting together, and they have formed a community. Mm-hmm. And that's just, it's a really special population with a special need. And so I just wanted to add that we don't have control over Holly Springs and Fuquay and those things. And the trajectory of those growing is very hard because of the therapeutic rec versus, right? Like whether you need a specialized degree to be in charge of specialized recreation, or if you're like me who just has a passion and understands recreation and can work with that population. And so it's just a hard program area. I mean, we didn't even have like an ADA statement when I started here in 2014. But if they are growing, it's really, really slow. Like Clayton has 1 program. Holly Springs has 3 programs. Fuquay has maybe 5. We have 70 something. So, and it took us, 10 years to get there? From 2 back in 2014? Sorry.
Thank you so much.
Allie.
Appreciate it.
To me, it's not really an easy decision, honestly. Like I hear, different cases, and then I lean different ways, and I come from a rec therapy background, so I have a heart for that, but then I hear the senior, and then where does that end? So I understand what you all are saying. So it kind of leads me to the question, like, Craig, is it equity in terms of like ease of pricing that really is driving the change, or is it sustainability, or is it all of that? I mean, is there a need to raise that fee? Because if there is, to sustain the programs, that's one conversation, but if it's more just to try to make it easier for pricing, that's a different conversation.
I think it's across the board, kind of where we are. I think we recognized that we had some neighbors that were kind of higher than we were. So I felt like just with going through it with the pros team, that for us, like the 25 seemed about right in comparison to our neighbors, even though some of them are all over the board. Like if you look at Cary, it's something different all through their guides. But for us, we were looking at it from a more consistency perspective for each of our areas, whether it was instructional or for athletics. And then obviously the seniors and the special population side, they were in a different tier from the start for those other purposes, right? Fixed incomes and the needs that they had for special populations outside of just coming to these programs. So
Greg, so what I hear is carries all over the place, so they probably made these stipulations or for special programs or special needs areas
Yeah,
for seniors. Or
I
something.
would say from looking at their stuff, they have kind of picked and chosen where they wanted to maneuver.
And I understand the caution that you all express. And I think the thing that we should wrestle with or understand that if we do change that price, me knowing parents and what people do for their children and the demand, it's probably not going to stop people from doing. They're going to try to figure out how to do that for their kids. But if we have the ability to make consideration, I'm on the side of thinking that we should, if we have that ability, and if we have examples that people do that. And it was a great question there. What is it for equity or sustainability? Is it something about? And I don't think we have issues in our law on that as far as pricing it. We need that pricing to drive the business part of this for our town, right? So. But I understand the caution. I'm not trying to move us in one direction, but I want to make sure that part is heard too, because you're in a catch-22 with special needs, right? Like in some regard, you should make concession there, but then some people are like, well, you don't do that because that's special need, that kind of thing. So you're in that kind of conundrum there. But I just do want it to go on record that, great question to ask there. And if it's not of that, and if we have the ability to, maybe that should be considered, and maybe that comes out in a motion later on, right?
And I do recognize that this is all about non-residents, so that's a big thing where if not for the special programs and seniors, we wouldn't be having this discussion because we have waiting lists upon waiting lists for our programs. So that's not the biggest issue for me, and I don't have an issue with it other than I don't want these special programs people who are traveling to not do that now because they can't afford it. So to have something available as far as a waiver, those kinds of things, I would love something like that. But again, I am aware this is all a discussion on non-residents, and our focus is the town of Apex. So I get that, and I, am appreciative of the opportunity to discuss everything you all have considered, and thank you very much for being here, Ally. It was perfect. So thanks.
Yeah, was there any talk of the ability to, kind of have forgiveness of some of that based on needs? Either was
Not
it that
really.
if you have to consider for everyone that might come and
And we have Play It Forward, but that's for residents.
That's for residents.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
And
not
again,
for
do we
non-
want
it's
to
a really
impose
small
this
number,
on
too.
staff, right? Now someone is going to have to
Right.
determine whether that
Determine,
need
right.
exists, right?
Right.
So all of that takes staff time and staff hours.
Yep.
Right. I understand, right, that it sounds like the right thing to do, and it is, right? But again, coming back to our priority is Apex residents, and part of our mission and purpose is to advise on policy, and we set a policy for something that makes a special exception. I feel fairly certain that you're going to have a group come back and say, why was this policy determined for this group and not this group? And if we can't say that, right, if we can't articulate that justification, then I think it puts us and puts the department in a precarious situation. So, and those are hard decisions, right? You feel like, hey, this is the right thing to do. We want to do this, but our task is,
Right.
we have to look at it from a policy perspective.
Correct.
It's hard.
Press on, and we'll come back to that at the end. I guess we get to the motion. So why the change? If you look at this chart here in the last 5 years, you can see the operational costs. This is not capital improvements, but how quickly and how much we've grown over the last 5 years and just operational cost. Now we do have the impact fees or those recreation fees, but they don't cover this exactly. So it's just a very small percentage of covering those operational costs. A lot of those costs are new staff, obviously, to put on these programs. But that's a reason, to look at this fee study, because we've had so much growth and so much change in operational costs. Again, I mentioned earlier, we don't have a formalized pricing policy. These worksheets that we'll go over in a little bit kind of provide staff a similar tool so that all staff can kind of look at programming and cost, both direct and indirect cost, and have a tool kind of in place to kind of capture all those costs and come up with what the appropriate fees would be based on this model we'll show here in a little bit. So that's basically one of the main reasons why we're doing this change and looking at that. And here's the model we're talking about. So this is what pros showed you at the last time they were here. So this is a tiered pricing model. So it starts at core community, and this is what benefits. Think of it as benefit to the community versus benefit to an individual. So at one end, and those percentages you'll see are cost recovery percentages. So 0 to 20% cost recovery, all up to 100% cost recovery. So down at the bottom, you have a core community, and this is in the policy if you want to follow along. But basically, these are programs that provide community benefit as a whole. They don't typically require any registration at all. They're more drop-in, like our special events. And we don't recover, anything right now for special events. But some of them will have an opportunity to do some cost recoveries. That's why it's in that 0 to 20% area. The next level you'll see is the core individual. And these programs have a considerable kind of community benefit, but they start to get a little bit of mix of individual in there. Think of these as, and we'll talk about why I took these examples out. So your packet you have now doesn't have examples in it. And that was, and I'll briefly mention why. Mary Lee, thanks for bringing that up. But that was a question that came in, a change we made based on that. It's because putting the examples in there kind of maybe pigeonhole us into this program that says it is in core individual. Now we have to keep it there because it's part of the policy. So we took those examples out because this will be a fluid thing that staff, as they start to review all 300 plus programs we have and figure out where they fall in this model, that's kind of the steps that the staff will be doing. So we didn't want to put examples that kind of forced a program to stay in that area. So the examples were removed from the policy you have in front of you tonight. But the core individual, I could still give you some examples where I think they're going to fall because we've had discussions with staff. That might be like your basic senior exercise program. It could be a chair mobility senior program. It's core to the community. It's something we should put on, have as a program, but it does have some individual benefits as well. So we can charge up to 20 to 40% if a program falls into that, or fee recovery at 20 to 40%, I should say, if a program falls into that area. Right now, senior programs recover 35% of the expenses. So this wouldn't be too much of a change for most of those senior programs if they fall into that core individual. Youth athletics recovers 50% of program costs. And you might see some of the youth athletics really kind of fall into this enhanced community we'll talk about next. And a lot of other programs, adult and community center programs, are really kind of right now at the 100% recovery rate, just to kind of get an idea. So those core individual, that 20 to 40%, think, some basic, they have a lot of community benefit, but some individual benefit, like a senior exercise program, a chair mobility program like that. The enhanced community benefit there, that has kind of a balance. Basically, that's where you're looking, it's almost like a half and half community benefit, half individual benefit. We consider probably youth athletics is going to fall on this, like I said a second ago. Probably the majority of our senior program that doesn't fall into the core individual might fall into the enhanced community. Again, this is a process that staff is just beginning to start, so we haven't really done that, flushed it out altogether. But if I had to think and make a guess, I think a lot of the senior events programs will come in that enhanced community. And also our summer camps. So our youth summer camps and our year-round camps would more than likely fall in this enhanced community, half community, half individual benefits. And then you go on up to the enhanced individual, 60 to 80% recovery. I was thinking probably something like what the Halley does with their community theater, where they have the kids put on a Christmas show. So it's a tryout. They actually sign up for this, but it's a tryout. they're getting the program, and then they kind of, it's almost a drama class after that. A lot of them are just new to drama. So the instructor's teaching them, then they're putting on a show for the Howley to actually sell tickets to at the end. So something like that has a mix of that community and individual benefit could fall into that enhanced individual. And then the specialized community, that's when you're getting a lot of benefit to the individual. There's still a little bit, some community benefit, but more, now we're getting more heavily onto the individual benefit, where you could have like an exercise class that's really geared, like a cardio class, a really specialized kind of exercise class could fall into that. Not a basic exercise, but more of a specialized exercise, class. Some trips, could fall into that. Senior trips might. We've talked about this back and forth, right? And right now, we're thinking senior trips could land in this specialized community individual. Just because of the nature of a trip is very limited. We're having to, hire bus companies when we don't use our own buses. There's meals. There's, staff isn't leading these trips, so it's has a lot of individual benefit for a trip. And right now, and we'll talk about that, but this is going to be one of the bigger changes for our senior program. We'll go over an example in a little bit. But right now, our senior trip is, cost recovery is 35%. That would be a big change to the getting up to the 80%. So just keep that in mind. We'll go through what that looks like on your models here in a second. And then lastly, we have the 100% cost recovery, those specialized individual classes. A lot of our classes, I would say a majority, especially at the community center and at the Howley, are contracted classes where we are hiring a contracted staff to lead the program. Staff kind of negotiates that rate with the instructor. The instructor says, in order to teach this class, make it worth my time, this is what I want to make. So we kind of use that as the base to kind of negotiate, and then we set class minimums. What is the minimum amount of people for that class to go to meet that rate that instructor, we're contracting with wants to make, and then what are the maximum, how many people can you actually have, physically in your class, and that's. So a lot of our classes, like I said, are in this specialized individual, and we do right now, and we're not proposing changing that. Most of our contracts are a 60-40 split, saying the instructor gets 60% of the revenue, the town gets 40%. With that model, we never lose money, because we set those minimums. So for a class to go, it has to hit the minimums, and that instructor fee was based on that minimum. So we know we're always going to hit that. We're always going to be at that 100% level, even if we just get the minimum participation. Anything over that, we're actually receiving more than 100% back in revenue. So it's 100% plus in that specialized rec. And we'll go over what that looks like in a second. Any questions on that model? And here's the worksheet. So let's go through some of that. We can go through all of them, we'll go through some of them. You'll let me know how much you want to. But the first one you have is a history with Wade. It's a one-time class. It just meets one time. So it just meets for a couple hours and the class is done. It's a senior class. We had this falling into that enhanced community at 40% recovery. The expenses, so the direct costs is that top area. So what are the expenses of that class? The only expense we really had was the contract with Wade. To teach that class, he wanted $60 to teach that one-time class. So that's that $60 direct cost. You come down to the indirect cost. Now this is that 25% we're talking about of indirect. That's not the non-resident fee, but we're setting indirect cost at 25%. Those are things like maintenance of a building, the lights, the staff time behind the scenes, getting the program guide together, all those administrative and maintenance kind of things that we know we have. They're just not, not a clean way to list them all out. So we just make a percentage of the total class, and we call that kind of that indirect admin maintenance cost. So we have that 25% added to the $60. So that made the total cost of that class $75 in Block C. So then Block C, we brought that over, that $75, and we were going to do a cost recovery of 40%. There were no additional hard costs, which we'll talk about which classes would have that. So that with a minimum class participations of 6, that came out to a cost per participant of $5. here's your $5 class, and then a non-resident, add the fee on that, it would be a $30 class. That class meant for, right below that, you see the length of time for a program that's hours. So we put 2 hours. It just kind of gives an idea of it's showing people the cost of their recreation hour. That they cost them to do that class $2.50 per hour. Pretty good low rate for entertainment value, basically, for a class. So that kind of shows you, and we'll look at that too, how that compares. So, and in that case, and then later we can do cost recovery. What were the actual numbers of total revenue? If we met the minimums, we would put that in there. But a lot of times we are getting more to the maximum of a class. Where a wage class is minimally 6, I think it's at 15 max. I'm not sure if you remember off the top of your head. And a lot of times these, like I said, our classes are popular, they're filling up. So in reality, we're making towards the higher amount of that. So we're actually recovering more than that 40% plus, but we set it there just in case a class goes at the minimum. Okay, on to your next example. This would be advanced yoga. Again, a senior program, it falls into that enhanced community area. For this particular class, let's see, we have contracted instructors as well. Now this is much more. We're at $1,440 of a contract to put this class on. You add on the same thing with the indirect costs. And back to participation fee calculations, so we put that in, cost recovery, 40%. So that means we need to recover 720. We had a minimum participants of 21, and that class came out to 34.29. Now we won't put that in the program guide at 34.29. We will typically round up or down to the nearest dollar, basically. So we won't have cents in there in classes. And so pretty much another straightforward contracted class, and with similar cost recovery in that example. Chair yoga is on the next page. That is a class that we felt might fall into that core individual. So you're not recuperating as much in the fees there, because chair yoga is for the individuals that aren't able to do the regular senior exercise. They need that extra mobility. They don't. So this is their basic exercise class. So that's why that's falling into that core individual. Again, a contract class instructor teaches that class and uses the same processes to come up with that fee, and that came up to $21 and $46 for non-residents, and length of time 7 hours, and that came down to $3 per hour basically for that. So, and you have questions along the way, just stop me. Then we get to this 3D printing I was talking about, where now you're talking a very specialized, highly specialized class. Specialized individual, that 100% rate. A contractor instructor teaches this class as well, but now we're recovering 100% of the fees instead of any kind of subsidy in that. So a lot of our programs are going to fall into this, and this is where they fall now. So there's not going to be significant changes in pricing with a lot of the community center programs and the Holly programs, because they are currently in that specialized individual 100% recovery range.
One question. What does this one have the non-resident rate as $15? Is it just a type?
If it does, yeah, should be 25.
Okay.
Yep.
That's what I
Yep. Good.
I'm reading it.
And these the pricing the worksheet is not part of the policy per se. This is like a staff tool. So we can kind of use this, manipulate it, and we're going to, like I said, staff has been trained, have had one training from pros on how to use this sheet. We'll probably have another one, and then we'll sit down and go through this as a group, because everybody's going to have a different opinion, I think, staff, of where their program falls into this pricing model, from in community to individual benefits. So we want to make sure we're all understanding the definitions the same, the process the same, and working as a group to set those prices, especially the first year, because it's going to take us some time. And speaking of time, how this is going to happen. So once this policy it comes into place, if you recommend it and the council approves it in September 9th meeting, We'll start working on those next steps. That will be over the next several months, start looking at those classes and we're meeting as a group and start putting them into that classification model. That'll build into our budget process because that will affect how we budget in December, January, February for next year. So the pricing that comes out of this will not go into effect until next fiscal year. We're not making any changes to our current pricing until we have gone through this and we have a clear understanding of where these classes fit on the model and we get some numbers in the budget to back that up. So again,
Can I ask a question about that? And that is, I mean, I know there's some variation with regard to the number of programs that folks have in our different facilities and categories. And so my assumption is, because in terms of workload, obviously, it's going to fall unevenly because some folks have a large number of programs and some not. So my assumption is all staff will work through every program will be completed, and the person who's last to be able to complete theirs, because they might have the largest load, that's okay. That's when we'll start looking at implementation.
Yeah, so,
right?
I mean, our ultimate goal is July 1st for the changes to occur. So
Right.
For me, what I could foresee happening is for the program guide, my hope would be for our program guide is no later than fall. That program guide have that information ready for the fall of that fiscal year.
So none of the changes, for instance, non-resident fee or whatever, nothing's going to be applied piecemeal. We're going to wait till we have it all done across the whole department.
That's my goal. And look, our department has a lot of stuff going on, if you didn't know that. I think David would tell you that. I think Allie would tell you that. Like, we're doing a whole lot right now. So I want to make sure that we have enough time to put this in place. And I want to be fair to our staff. And I want to be fair to the budget staff, too, because they've got to take these things into account. Like our facility rentals, they could probably be as of July 1st.
Right.
I mean, that would be something specific that we don't have to go through all the different formulas, but for me, really the goal is fiscal year. So,
But now you have this as a tool to be able to price all
That's
of the
right.
programs, and so for each program, you are calculating the direct cost, and then you're evaluating the indirect costs annually. Is that how it'll be? Okay.
And I'd ask this question of David specifically because I wanted to make sure that there would be an annual review process, particularly in terms of the impact, not only on program registration and participation, the impact on our instructor compensation and recruitment, like, are there going to be changes that might affect any of that? The balance across our program areas, I can speak to the senior program where we have fitness and we have educational and we have social and we have arts, that kind of thing. But then, of course, comparability across all of our facilities and divisions, the Halley, et cetera. So I was really pleased to know that there's going to be a process to do that.
it's going to take a while, like I said, and we have some time. That first, lift is going to be heavy because we got to do all the programs initially. Thereafter, it should be a little more, let's review any new programs, we'll go through the process, but if there's any reason to change any of the existing ones, we can have a quick discussion. So most of the ones we've already classified will probably, as long as they've stayed basically in the same format, they'll stay in that same classification. So this first year it'll be a little harder, but after that, subsequent should be a little smoother process.
I mean, full transparency, they were pretty impressed with where we were right now in most of our areas. So even with being a little inconsistent across the board, I mean, by basically looking at the market is how we've been handling it for the most part, honestly. We had a formula in place. People were using it differently than another person. And so for us, I was pleased to hear that we were at least somewhere where we needed to be. Now, you'll hear like senior trips. That's a really specialized thing, and we're finding out that that's an area that we need to make an adjustment in, and so that's kind of what we also found in this. But I was pleased to hear for the majority of stuff that we were kind of in the range, so from a benchmarking perspective.
Okay. The next one, you have a specialized recreation example. Bowling is a program they go on. So Emily herself was a full-time staff member. She had been leading those programs. So her direct cost we weren't showing as a salary. But now we'll be using our limited service employees. So our part-time staff will be leading those trips. And this particular one's a trip, bowling. They go out to a bowling alley and they bowl. And so we have the fees of but we pay our part-time staff captured. The admission fee is down below. So anything in that first box, if there is a subsidy, it'll apply to those direct costs. Anything that we do not subsidize, and those would be kind of some of these harder dollar costs, like admissions or special supplies or meals, we'll put them in there. And so the admissions to the bowling alley for these 6 individuals were $48 so to do the bowling. So we do not subsidize the admission to bowling. We subsidize the trip. We take them there in the van and the LSCs. All that gets subsidized, but not the actual admission fee itself. The same thing will go for trips, thing like that. So if you're going into a trip and there's an admission fee, or there's meals, or there's lodging, and I think we have an example here in a second to look at that. But those are hard dollar, and we pass that on at 100% cost. We don't subsidize that. So so you can see. You could even go down to low, since this is kind of that core community, we could go down to even that 10%. I just do 10%. We're not necessarily going to do that cost recovery, but I'm showing you what a 10% cost recovery would look like for a program like that that has hard dollar costs as well. And that came out to like $10, basically a resident for a bowling trip. And then, $25, $35 for a non-resident. So that length of time, though, is 13 hours to do all those bowling. That bowling trip is what Emily's estimate. So that cost is less than $1 an hour for entertainment for what they do for that. Next is youth soccer. So this is a quite large program we're looking at now, one of our youth athletic kind of programs. So this is where we have direct costs. A lot of where we're not using contracted staff as we were in a lot of other programs. We're using LSE, our part-time staff. There's professional services, a lot of supplies, materials, a lot of uniforms and balls and everything else you can think of. We have contracts with referees in some cases, but it's volunteer-led for the most part because volunteer coaches are doing that. So those are those direct costs. Again, we're putting that 25% indirect costs in there to cover the maintenance of the fields, et cetera, like that. There were no hard dollar costs associated with this one. This particular youth athletic program falls into that enhanced community, so that 40 to 60% recovery. We put that example at 50% because right now that's kind of where we are at youth athletics. We are recovering 50% of our direct costs. So really there should be no change if we keep it at 50%. And it falls into the enhanced community 40, 60% for most of our youth athletic programs. We'll kind of operate the same way because we were capturing the cost already and coming with those fees. So don't see a lot of changes in our youth athletics. Adult athletics is on the higher end. Now you're talking closer to the 100% recovery. It's not quite as core to our program as the youth programs are in athletics. And lastly, a senior trip. So Megan picked a big one for me. She picked an overnight trip to Monticello. So this is where we have our LSEs are on the trip helping out, so we pay them, our part-time staff. Some supplies, materials. She likes to keep them well, and snacks. So on the bus, so there's snacks on that. The transportation is one of the bigger expenses of this. We charter bus companies to do these longer trips, these overnight trips. If they're shorter day trips, we use our own buses. They can not handle as many people as 60 or whatever, but we don't have that expense. And so we're not recovering our own bus that we have two. We use those. But for these bigger trips, we have that contracted bus company. Again, we're factoring that 25% cost in there, the indirect cost. And then we're adding those hard cost calculations. Those are the admissions that we talked about before to wherever they're going. I guess Monticello charges to go in. So there's admission fees. There are meal fees included. So a lot of they pre-programmed meals and they kind of order in advance. And it's a lot of logistics to put on a senior trip as we know. And we also include staff. So the staff that are working, that their meals and such are recovered in this fee as well. So not just participants, but also the staff in there. So that's covered. And then you have and then your lodging. So the hotel, in this case, was actually a hotel room. So quite the expensive trip as far as all the fees and stuff going up. So if we're looking at that 80% recovery of that total, now you're looking at a trip that's going to cost per participant about $160 for a resident and $185 for a non-resident. Just to kind of put it in place right now, that same trip is costing probably about $50 less. But we're also not recovering 80%. Current cost recovery is at 35% for senior trips, minus the direct hard costs. We're still recovering the harder costs, the admissions, the supplies, the lodging, but that's where you see the biggest jump in pricing because we were going for cost recovery.
Surprised, David, to hear you say it, just because I thought our trips were, I thought we had a different level of cost recovery on those, but I could be mistaken about that. So
We do on the hard direct costs, those admissions, the lodging and the food.
Right.
We recover 100% of that.
Right.
The subsidy is for the bus and the staff part. And it's the same way it's laid out here. So it's just a less of it's 80% instead of 35%. It's what's making that price go up. To me, I think that's $160 to me, I mean, we're all different, but that's pretty good for an overnight trip, lodging, meals. You know, you just show up, get on the bus, and go. The entertainment value of that is pretty good. So I know it's a change. That's probably one of our biggest change to fees.
Hang on 1 second. You have something to add to that?
Sorry.
Apparently.
No, Marilee, David was correct that in our current pricing policy, the bus and the LSCs are, and like supplies in general, are subsidized at 35%. And the direct, or the hard costs, the admission into, anything that goes to the individual, like
Right.
their meal, their ticket costs, are charged at 100%.
right,
So that was correct. Where we recover a lot more because we base it on a minimum for the bus to go, which is usually at 30, and we usually max it out at 52. So we're actually recovering around 73%, even though it's at a 35% subsidy.
and I knew the bus was kind of a sticky thing. Okay, thanks.
It's kind of like a specialized, so yes, I think
Right.
you're thinking, because our cost recovery is actually a lot more due to the nature of how they're priced, and we don't ever have trouble billing buses.
Right, right.
And those
Yep.
are all residents.
Thanks for the clarification.
That's the last example I have. So what happens next? We can go back and talk about the specialized rec and make sure we have understanding where we want to go with that with the non-resident rate. But from here, you know, we presented this to pros presented to council last 2 meetings ago, and then we're coming to you presenting it. So once you get your feedback and discussion, we can talk more about anything you want to talk about. We'll ask questions. Then it will go, once we make a kind of a motion to make the recommendation, that'll go to council September 9th. And then we'll go back into the more training for staff, how to do this, how to get it implemented. And again, like I said, we'll go to all the way till July before we really kind of start this new pricing policy. But that's what I have. So more discussion, questions, it's the time to do it.
I have a couple of comments. First is I just want to make sure I acknowledge how thoughtful and extensive and detailed this has all been. And David also, especially where I had questions, the fact that you were so quick and complete in your response to me. So I think we've covered the need to review annually. We feel good about knowing that that's going to be included, right? And the fact that you pulled out some of those examples to make sure that people didn't feel boxed in. I didn't know whether or not, from a policy point of view, okay, to make sure that this doesn't have to go back to council more often than necessary. If we pull out the examples, you think that that's going to give us enough flexibility so that as the community changes, the programs change, all of that sort of thing, you know, we're not gonna have to worry, that's all gonna be internal effectively,
Yeah, I
right?
think, so we had this discussion because I know that question was raised, and I
Right.
think if we pulled out the examples that we actually have in the policy currently, I think that would keep us open to being able to be flexible in determining where all these programs are going to fall. I don't want to pigeonhole ourselves into something that's not going to come to fruition. So I do feel like we could take that out, and that would be a lot clearer path for us.
Okay, all right, because otherwise I would have asked that we do something that, you know, would have said that those could be modified or updated, but it doesn't sound like that's gonna be necessary, so that's great. The only other comment that I had to make, and I want to thank my fellow board members for their indulgence, and the director and assistant director for their indulgences. I had so many questions about this particular area, was I know that there's part of it that talks about drop-ins, you know, drop-in programs without registration. Now, there may be more drop-ins programs than I know about. We have virtually none, you know, because we've got such demand. We can't afford to have a drop-in program because we would have more people showing up than we have chairs. Is that still, is that open gym?
So something like open gym.
Yeah,
something,
pickleball.
something like, I think for senior exercise, y'all do passes, right?
Anything with a pass, I
So
know
anything
that.
with a pass, basically, we can look at market value to determine those rates for
Okay,
that. And,
okay.
and that's not currently like within the policy itself.
Right, I know,
We
that's,
can-
right.
Or the fee
So I didn't know
studies.
if there was.
part of the fee schedule. Though.
Right, so I didn't know if there was
Schedule, yeah.
anything else in terms of drop-in programs that we have that we think would be impacted. From our point of view, this is not a big
No, I
issue.
mean, you've got the pass for senior,
Right,
the
yeah.
senior exercise
Yeah,
piece.
without
You got the pass for the senior exercise.
Right.
You've got a pass for the facility exercise area.
Right, yeah,
And then you've got the pass for pickleball, and you've got the pass for open gym
right. So
basketball.
those are the only ones that we even think this
So
would.
that would be
yeah.
more of a
Yeah.
market, and we would put those in the fee schedule.
There are a few drop-in classes that we don't have fees for, that the Halley does, like Super Fun Saturdays. It's like an art thing, and it's just drop-in.
That's
There's
right.
No registration required, there's no fee.
Oh, the movies.
Just, yeah, and the movies, the free
Movies,
movies, are outdoor movies and indoor movies, or don't require registration.
Mm-hmm.
They're all drop-in, and our special events
Right.
basically as a whole are all drop-in and don't require registrations and such as that.
But we feel comfortable about those in terms of, yeah, okay. Good enough.
Other thoughts, comments? And my appreciation for everyone, like I said, it's one of our more lengthy meetings than the norm, so thanks everyone.
This is an important one, though.
Yeah, definitely.
This is
definitely.
something that we haven't touched in over 15 years.
Right.
And so this is, I mean, it's been a healthy discussion, and it needed to be, because, I mean, it has impacts, right? So,
Yes.
And I want to thank David, and I'm going to thank our staff from now and moving forward, because it will be a heavy lift. And so, however we ended it up here and what goes to council, it's going to be a heavy lift. So my appreciation goes out to them too. Sorry to cut you off. I did want to say that.
So, like to make a motion?
Yeah, and like I said, unless anyone has any other comments or questions about anything, yeah, we need a motion for the moving this forward for town council. I think it's coming up on the 9th, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so,
I'll make a motion to approve the updated programming and rental pricing policy as presented.
I'll second that.
second and properly motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? One abstain.
And not because I disagree with what's been presented here, but just that I'm still aching over the specialized rec issues, and I just, so that's something I feel like I'd like to, yeah.
And I want to go on record feeling the same with that specialized program. So, and I'm doing my best not to belabor the meeting and make the meeting longer. But just a few things I've heard, and one of the things, like Michael said, like, it's a hard thing to do, but it's the right thing to do. So if it's the right thing to do, why aren't we doing it? right? So, you know, words have power when you say stuff like if it's the right thing to do, then why aren't we doing it, right? And if we have the ability to do it, I don't think we're going to get a lot of pushback from other programs around special populations and making decisions. So and that's what I've been, if the stern look on my face, that's what I've been wrestling with, because I just don't think we're going to get that pushback. And so if that's the case, you know, if we have the ability, so if that consideration can be taken back and considered, I don't know if we did it in the right order because the motion has been made in second, but definitely.
Again, we'll look at this annually, and we can come back to it if it doesn't work. We can be creative in the way it's staffed. You know, like you said, passes aren't affected by this. What if specialized rec is a pass program? I'm just throwing some my crazy idea. We haven't talked about any of this, but I think I hear your feelings, and I know where you're coming from. So we can definitely look at those concerns and figure out if there's any ways to mitigate that, soften that blow.
If we reevaluated this in a year, I mean, once the new rates went into place, we look a year later, if that's the policy, and we see that there are unused slots for specialized recreation or other programs, then we might say at that point, is the fee, that additional non-resident fee, really driving away those people? At that point, you really have to take a look at it, it feels like. But listening to Michael talk about, you know, from the policy perspective, and then hearing you all talk about focusing on Apex residents, it's neither one feel like 100% perfect direction. I don't leave without reservation either way, but that does feel like that what was presented is solid enough to say, like, we could support this at this point. That's where I'm coming from that. But like this is coming from somebody that's like, you know.
Right.
But then also hearing about people that are in marginalized positions or don't have the income, you know, where does that end? But I think we have to be open all along the way to hear different cases from people, even if it's in the middle of a year, and say, hey, like this is something you need to put on the table for whenever the right time is to have that discussion. But it's you know, I second what you were saying, Craig, to your team, you and your team. It's a challenging process, and there's so many things to consider, and you think you've got it, and then there's another case, you know, and there's another case. So I really appreciate and recognize the work that goes into that, and the work that will be going into it over the next several months to try to get it as solid as possible.
And I think I'm so reassured both by the annual review and the fact that we're going to be open to all this discussion, and so yeah, I mean, I'm very pleased about all of that.
Thank you.
And the last ad, the part about, you know, Apex residents, right? And that's what we're here for. And I get it. I'm so grateful and thankful for being an Apex resident. But I wanted to be careful. And I'm coming from a person in the community and being here and hearing things about our community and other communities, where you're from, where you live. I think there's a fine line between being exclusive and being distinguished, right? And so I don't know that we want to be regarded as being too exclusive, right? But being distinguished, that, you know, we understand that we do take care of our residents first, right? But when there's a chance to make a difference somewhere, I'd rather be on the side of being distinguished and considering those things than being exclusive and looking like, you know, yeah, but, you know, we don't want to consider that. So I'll say that too as well. I think there's a difference and a fine line between being exclusive versus being distinguished, and the reputation that we have as a community in a town. So with that being said, if no other comments, we just need a motion to adjourn. Oh, excuse me, there's no new business too. There was a new business. Any new business? If not, a motion to adjourn. Motion.
Second.
Motion properly second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Meeting adjourned.
Opposed to adjournment?
Thanks, everybody.
Opposed to an adjournment.
That was one of our.
Well, hey, look, some people